Alright guys, I'm back with number 17. So this is kind of a weird problem. Not my favorite, but I'll show you why. Alright, so we have 100x squared minus 40x plus 4. So with this problem, 100, 40, and 4, they all have a GCF because they're all even. And I noticed I can divide them all by 4. If you divide it by 2, that's fine. You're just going to have one more step when you have to, and I started dividing by 2 because I was talking about it. But if you divide by 2, that's fine because you'll just do one more step there and that's okay. So when I divide by 2, or 4, sorry guys, as you can tell, I'm not feeling so well from my voice. Apparently it's affecting my brain and my math too. But I'm left with 25x squared minus 10x plus 1. So this is going to be just a normal slide and divide problem because now our a value is greater than 1. Alright, so it's important to write out your steps each time because if you forget to write them out, you're more likely to miss them. Even if you just go with your first letter, S for slide, F for factor and all that. Because I just tried to do one, I was skipping, I didn't write down my steps, I was being lazy, and then I missed the divide, reduce, and swing. Alright, so I'm going to start with my slide. And this 4 is just going to hang out here until the very end. So for slide, I'm going to multiply this 25 by the 1. So I get x squared minus 10x plus 25. Then I'm going to factor. And again, we'll have that 4 out there for the whole thing. I need two numbers that multiply give me 25 and add to give me negative 10. Well, since they add to give me a negative, I know they're both going to be negative in order to give us a negative when we, or positive when we multiply. So the only numbers I can think of here are negative 5 and negative 5. Negative 5 times negative 5 is positive 25. And negative 5 plus negative 5 is negative 10. So we're factoring. Again, that 4 stays outside. I have x minus 5, x minus 5. All right, so slide, factor. Now we divide. We are dividing by the number we slid at the beginning. So we slid 25. Now, in case you forget how to simplify fractions, your calculator will do this for you because our next step is to reduce. So it depends on if you have a calculator or not for your test. But if we're looking at this, to type in a fraction, you're going to do alpha y equals. And that top one, n over d, that's numerator over denominator, so we're going to press enter. And my fraction there is 5 over 25. So if I just press enter, it simplifies for me to 1 over 5. So that 4 is still outside. I have x minus 1 over 5 and x minus 1 over 5. All right. And then our last step, we are going to swing. So this denominator is going to come in front of the x for both these. So we're left with 4 and then 5x minus 1 and then 5x minus 1. Got a problem though. That doesn't match any of my answers, and that's why I told you guys from the beginning this one was weird. I may end up changing it before you get to it, but we'll see. So if I distribute this 4 back in, I'd have 20x minus 4. That still doesn't match any of them. So what I can do is I can split up this 4 into 2 and 2. And then I have 5x minus 1 and 5x minus 1. So if I distribute 2 back into each of these, let's look at what we get. We're left over here with 2 times 5, that's 10x minus 2. And then again, 10x minus 2. That actually does match one of our answers, and that's answer choice A. So their answer is written without the greatest common factor taken out, which is why I don't really like that problem, because we should always take out our greatest common factor. So again, don't be surprised if that one changes before you get it on your practice test. All right, number 18. For number 18, we just have a problem where our a value is 1. So for this problem, that's just going to be an x problem. I need two numbers here that multiply to give me negative 20 and add to give me 1, because this is a 1x. All right, So since they multiply, give me a negative, one's negative, one's positive. So I could do 1 times negative 20, negative 1 times positive 20. 2 goes in 20, 2 times negative 10, or negative 2 times positive 10. 3 does not go in. 4 does. 4 times negative 5, or negative 4 times positive 5. And then we get to 5, so we're starting to repeat. So we're done with those factors. Now, I need to add up to positive 1. 2 plus negative 10 gives me negative 8, so that won't work. 4 plus negative 5 gives me negative 1. That won't work, but negative 4 plus 5 gives me a positive 1. So let's write it out. X minus 4, x plus 5. Be careful, you have one that's almost the same, but the signs are different. The one this matches is answer choice D. All right, number 19 here. Another one where A is 1. This is awesome. This is an easy problem then too. We have 121 and we have negative 22. Now 121. All right, I'm going to use my calculator here. 121, divided by x. So I need to find two negatives that add up to give us negative 22. So I press y equals 121 divided by x. Second graph. And negative 1 plus negative 121 does not work. It's a lot of decimals here. I'm skipping all those. Even more decimals. Hey, 11 and 11, negative 11 and 11. That actually worked. That adds up to negative 22. So we found our factors. So when we split it up, we're left with b minus 11 and b minus 11. And that's it. We are done with that problem. You could also write it as b minus 11 squared. All right, next problem. So again, first step, we always check for a GCF. So we have 3a squared minus 24ab plus 48b squared. I know that all three of those numbers can be divided by 3. So I'm going to write this out here. Now, we got to be careful. They don't all have the same variable. They all have a's and b's, but this one doesn't have any a's, this one doesn't have any b's. So we're not going to be able to take out any variable here. But we can take out 3. 3 divided by 3 is just 1, so I'm left with a squared. Negative 24 divided by 3 is 8. And 48 divided by 3 is 16. All right, so now when we write it out, we are left with 3. And then I have a squared minus 8ab plus 16b squared. Notice no answer says that. We have to keep going with this. Okay, so it wasn't just a simple take out the GCF. Now our a value is a 1. So we're going to draw our x. I need two numbers that multiply, give me 16. Add to give me negative 8. And this is not sign divide because that 3 is not part of what we're factoring anymore. That 3 is just outside at the very beginning. So in this problem, let's see. So 16 is 4 times 4. Hey, but if they're both negative, that adds to give us negative 8. Now, this one's a little weird with our letters. We have A and B. So here we have A minus 4B and A minus 4B. And again, we could check that using our area model or boxes to multiply it back in or by using FOIL. So here, let's see which one this matches. And that's going to match answer choice C here. All right, we have just a few more problems here, so let's see if we can finish these up. All right, great. Number 21. This is just a simple factor. So I need two numbers. This is our A is 1. So I'm drawing my X. Two numbers that multiply give me 12, add to give me 7. Well, that's a pretty easy one. That's 3 and 4. So in my parentheses, I'm going to have X plus 3 and X plus 4. So again, remember, when you set up the X, they have to multiply to give you the top number, which we got from the last number, the constant. And they add to give you the bottom number, which we got from just the coefficient of the plain old X. And so this one matches answer choice A here. All right, number 22, factor completely. I notice right here, this is a binomial, it's subtraction, and they're both perfect squares. So I normally would follow my difference of squares rule. However, this one has a greatest common factor. Both of these numbers are even. So we always have to take out that greatest common factor first. All right, so our greatest common factor here, 2 goes in, but I also notice 4 can go in there. 100 divided by 4 is going to give us 25. 4 divided by 4 is just 1. If you don't take out the GCF, you will likely lose that in your problem and forget about that. It's very important to make sure you take out that greatest common factor as you're going. So now we keep going. This isn't our answer either. Right here we have in the blue a binomial. It is subtraction, and they are both perfect squares because remember, 1 times 1 gives us 1. We can keep going with this problem. 4 stays on the outside. We're going to have a plus in one, a minus in the other. Now, the square root of 25x squared. 5 times 5 gives us 25. X times x gives us x. So our square root's 5x. That goes at the beginning of each. Square root of 1 times 1 is 1, goes at the end. Remember, when you're talking about the square root, you're looking for what number times itself gives you that number. So this would actually be our final answer here, the 4 and 5x plus 1. And 5x minus 1. So be careful. Always check for at GCF first, because I guarantee there would be people missing that problem. And without the GCF, it is not fully correct. All right, number 23 here. I can just look at my answer choices right now, and there's no GCF out front of any of them. That's a clue. 15, 74, 32, nothing that goes into those. So this is going to be a slide and divide problem because our a value is greater than 1 here. So we've got some big numbers, but we can do this. So we're going to first slide. We have to multiply our 15 times our 32. All right, so 15 times 32 is going to give us 480. So I get x squared plus 74x minus 480. Now our next step is going to be to factor. So I need two numbers here that multiply to give me this negative 480. And they add to give me 74. This will be a good one to use a calculator for because we got some big numbers here. So I'm going to go y equals and type in negative 480 divided by x. And again, I'm looking for two numbers that add to give me a positive 74. So alpha y equals here. Okay, so I know I am going to have some negatives. Since they add to give us 74, let's see. Negative 8 and 60 gives me 52, so that doesn't work. Negative 16 and 30. Okay, that's going to, maybe we need to go the other way with this. So let's start at 0 here. Negative 2, well, here. Negative 1, 480, that's going to add to give us 479. These are still too big. Negative 2, 240 gives us 238. Negative 4, 120 gives us 116. We're getting closer. Negative 5, 96 gives me 91. Negative 6 and 80, that's 80 minus 6, that's 74. Okay, so we found here negative 6 and positive 80. So when we factor, we have x minus 6 and x plus 80. All right, so we did our slide, we did our factor. And again, if you don't write this out, you are likely to miss steps. I have done it. You will likely do it too. So don't make the same mistakes I did. Be better than me. So we're going to divide here. We're dividing by what we slid. That was our 15. So now we are going to reduce. All right, so when we reduce, you have to find what number you can divide each of those by. So I can divide 6 by 3. 6 divided by 3 gives me 2. 15 divided by 3 gives me 5. Remember, your calculator will also simplify for you. So let's get that zoomed in. If you do alpha y equals, We had 6 over 15 and press enter, and that simplifies to 2/5, which is what we got over here. All right, now 80 and 5. Well, 80 divided by 5. I can even write it out if I want to. 5 goes in, 8, 1. 1 times 5 is 5. Bring down the 3, okay. Bring down the 0. So 5 goes in 30, 16 times, because 5 went to 30, 5 goes in 36, so then 5 goes in 8, 16. And then 5 goes into 15, 3. And again, we could check it with the calculator. Alpha y equals, and our fraction was 80 over 15, so 80 over 15. And that gives us 16 over 3, which is the same thing that we got. All right, so now we did our slide, factor, divide, reduce, and now we have to swing. So we're going to take our denominator and swing that in front of our numerator here. And that gives us 5x minus 2 and 3x plus 16. So that's going to match which one? Be careful, that matches answer choice D. All right, number 24. This one again, there's no GCF, so this is another slide and divide problem. And our first step we are going to do is slide. So we're going to multiply that 2 by the 15. That gives me x squared plus 13x minus 30. So I'm going to now factor. I need two numbers here that multiply give me negative 30 and add to give me 13. So if we were kind of looking at this, since they multiply give me a negative, that means one's negative, one's positive. So I could have negative 1 times 30, 1 times negative 30. Those don't add up to give me 13 though. I could have negative 2 and 15, 2 and negative 15. I could have negative 3 and 10, 3 and negative 10, 4 doesn't go in, 5 does though, 5 and 6, oops, that's positive, 5 and negative 6. So be careful, naturally 3 and 10 make 13, but they have to add to give you positive 13. Negative 3 plus 10 gives you 7, not the 13. And since the number they're adding up to is positive, your bigger number has to be positive. So we're really looking at this negative 2 and 15. Negative 2 times 15 gives you negative 30. Negative 2 plus 15 gives you 13. So negative 2 and 15. So we are left with x minus 2 and x plus 15. So we did our slide, we did our factor. Now we're going to divide. And we're dividing by the number we slid at the very beginning, which was the 2. And we are going to reduce. Now 2 over 2 gives me 1. 2 divided by 2 is 1. 15 over 2, that can't be simplified. So our last step here is to swing. So this 2 is going to swing in front of the x. And that's not going to change this first set of parentheses, but here we'll have 2x plus 15. Now, the one that's closest is A. Notice the only thing they did was switch the parentheses, which is the same answer. Again, something like 2 times 3 is the same as 3 times 2. That's our commutative property of multiplication. You can change the order of things. So our answer there is A. All right, last problem. So we have 4b squared minus 8b minus 60. If I look at all those numbers, they are all even. We're going to have a GCF that we're going to need to take out. Now, just because that one is the only one with the GCF out, don't assume that's the right answer, because we had some earlier that the GCF is going to multiply back in. So let's actually do this problem. So we're going to divide here by 2. 4 divided by 2 gives me 2. 8 divided by 2 gives me 4. 60 divided by 2 gives me negative 30. And those numbers are all still even, so we can divide by 2 again. 2 divided by 2 is just 1, b squared. 4 divided by 2 is 2. 30 divided by 2 is negative 15. All right, we're left with the 1, so now we're done with finding our GCF. So our greatest common factor we pull out is a 4. And then we are left with b squared minus 2b minus 15. So now we're at the point where we just have an a value of 1. That 4 is just the greatest common factor. We're not worrying about that now. And we need two numbers that multiply give us negative 15, add to give us negative 2. So if I look at that, 15, they multiply give me a negative, so 1's negative. 1 times 15, 1 times negative 15, 2 doesn't go in. 3 does. 3 times 5, 3 times negative 5. And that's it for my factors there. Now, I have to look for the pair that adds to give me a negative 2. And so that's going to be 3 and negative 5. The negative has to be bigger if they're going to add to give you a negative. So I have the 4 outside. And then I have b and plus 3 and b minus 5. So it did actually end up as the one that had the GCF outside. But again, there might be weird problems, so be careful about that. Make sure you actually do them. So that does match up with answer choice B. So that's all for your practice test. Hopefully you guys will all do really well on the actual test.